You're listening to the Chad Hasty Show on demand. Good for you. Now download the KFYO app and listen live weekday afternoons 5 to 7 p.m. Central.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is The Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty. Filling in today for Chad Hasty, it's firearms enthusiast Steve Evans.
Hey, welcome to the Chad Hasty Show. All you out there in radio land, from Amarillo to Midland, Odessa to, we go all the way to the coast, right? Coast to coast. Oh, you folks out in Wichita Falls, Abilene, San Angelo, you can pick us up. Sweetwater, somewhere in between. And streaming live on the internet from your radio station. Broadcasting from the Southwest studios today, 806-680-2790. If you'd like to send a message, love to hear from you. Congressman Arrington is scheduled to be with us in the Southwest studio at some point. He's on his way. Headed this way, running late, but he'll be here at some point today. So we'll get to visit with him. And, you know, if you want to text in a few questions, happy to hey, Robert popped in first today. Happy to at least entertain him. But, you know, one thing I want to do is, you know, we always talk, we know what's going on in D.C. It's a train wreck. So we might ask him to give us a quick overview, but out here in West Texas, he's been out here kind of on the campaign trail. You've always got to be on the campaign trail, right? But he's been out in the district, traveling around. I can see him on Facebook hitting the rural areas, but he's got an interesting take on this election and the work that has to be done, and he's, of course, doing his part as well. So I suspect I'm going to try to get him to focus on that some. Of course, they always ask what topics we want to talk about. I always kind of get vague because he's just better off the cuff. So expect to have him here at some point today in the first hour. I picked this up on the Texan News, and I'm still trying to unravel what it is, but there's a new surveillance tool and of course, anytime you hear the word surveillance, a lot of us get real nervous. This might be a good thing. I don't know. DPS has finalized a contract for Tangles, a new multi-million-dollar contract for a surveillance tool. They finalized an acquisition plan for a 5-year contract worth nearly $5.3 million to obtain a service tool named Tangles from the software company Penlink. Penlink's Cobwebs technology developed Tangles, an AI-powered, we're back to AI. AI-powered open-source intelligence platform that integrates data from various online sources to provide comprehensive analysis for law enforcement. I would bet that it's not going to be long before an individual can get access to this. Not necessarily this software, but they'll have the same type of AI search tools. I mean, you really don't even have to know a lot to put them together. You just ask them to put themselves together, and it goes out and does it, you know? We're going to get to that point where it's going to be like Star Trek, where you say, computer, assemble a program to do this for me. It's coming, and you're seeing AI technology develop so rapidly. It doesn't shock me when I hear something new about it. It blows my mind. Let's see. It integrates various online sources to provide comprehensive analysis for law enforcement, public safety, and government entities, and anybody else that can steal it. The Tangles platform states it's able to quickly identify and analyze potential crime activity. Anybody ever see Minority Report? You remember that? Crime activity such as drug trafficking, cyber crimes, gang activity. The observer noted that Tangle users do not need a search warrant or subpoena to utilize the software. That starts to bother me too. The DPS has not responded to requests for comment yet. I wonder why. Hang on just a sec. Let me answer a text. Everybody hold on while I answer a text. I've got the congressman actually texting me. Cobweb's Tangles platform allows users to seamlessly tie all layers of the World Wide Web together. Does people even say World Wide Web anymore? Wide Web together to see a complete picture of a person, place, group, or entity. Creepy, without a warrant. But this is public data that they're grabbing. By analyzing this online data seamlessly and safely in one platform, intelligence analysts streamline their intelligence process, quickly accelerating investigations to find missing links, associations, and activity. Cobwebs was founded in Israel, was acquired in 23 by Penlink, Nebraska-based company. During a trip to Israel in 2019, a delegation of U.S. House members, including Henry Cuellar, our favorite Democrat from Texas, I guess, was given a presentation about how the algorithm successfully cracked various terrorist attacks around the globe. Of course, we don't have a problem using technology for something outside of our borders. But, now we're trying to turn in this technology and we're going to use it here, I assume. The DPS is the one that's contracting it, where discussions were had about how it could be implemented in various law enforcement agencies in the U.S. to help prevent terrorist attacks. In 23, the Intercept reported that back in 21, the DPS Intelligence and Counterterrorism Division purchased a year of Tangles Access, which was renewed twice. Each of these subscriptions was made in accordance with a border disaster declaration from Governor Abbott as part of Operation Lone Star. The Intercept noted that DPS access to Tangles and its incorporation into border enforcement remains uncertain. Both the Texas Observer and the Intercept reports provide details on WebLock, a Tangles add-on feature described as a location-based intelligence platform that can harness geospatial data and geo-analytic capabilities for public safety. Furthermore, the geodata can then be analyzed by geofencing, where they can wrap around a search area, on one or more points of interest on an interactive map. Without a warrant, mind you. No warrant needed. Robert says, the squirrel is strong with you today. No, I'm just doing 10 things at one time. It's really not too bad. U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit ruled last week that geofencing warrants used to obtain digital data from Google users' database without identifying specific suspects, we talked about this, are unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment, contradicting the Fourth Circuit's earlier ruling that they were not, setting up a review by the Supreme Court, which will impact the Tangles system. The IRS Criminal Investigative Unit and the Los Angeles Police Department, U.S. Department of Homeland Security have purchased access to Cobweb's technology software. In 21, Meta reported that it had removed about 200 accounts which were operated by Cobwebs and its customers worldwide. So they're creating Facebook accounts to go out and search. They probably go out and do massive friend requests and start grabbing friendships so they can get closer to the data. The report explains that Cobweb customers engaged in social engineering to join closed communities and forums and trick people into revealing personal information, all without a warrant. This ought to make you nervous. When we talk about AI and its capabilities, it's moving faster than most people can comprehend what it's able to do. I've long been nervous about its ability to create voices, its ability to create video. Remember when they first started coming out with pictures and video, they couldn't get the hands right. The hands are all messed. Oh, that's been fixed now. The latest generation of AI can duplicate the hands perfectly. What's going to happen when AI is used to create photos or video or audio that can be used against you in your criminal trial and you're convicted based on a complete falsity, complete generated evidence? Is it going to come to that, or is it going to get to the point where it's going to be much, much tougher to convict people because the evidence has to be vetted so deeply to find out if it's actually AI? And then are the forensic labs and the people who dig into this stuff, are they going to have the available manpower and the available funding to do that? Is it going to be more expensive to mount a criminal defense because now you've got to hire specialists to go in and try to break that data apart? These are all questions that I don't think we have answers to, that I've heard, and it needs to be looked at and analyzed before we rely too heavily on it. But I don't think that's going to stop. I mean, you're not going to slow it down. It's coming. You've already got government agencies are starting to employ, like the story we're talking about, like Cobweb Technologies and Tangles. They're already getting contracts with AI-powered technology, and it's all open source technology. So, largely you can go out there and develop the platform too. I don't know. It's if someone knows how to go completely, can we go completely off the grid anymore? I don't think you can if you have a cell phone. I don't think you can dig into your cell phone deep enough and turn enough things off to not be trackable. I don't know if it's possible. I've got 2 cell phones, an iPad, I've got an Apple Watch. I've got too many things that can track me. And I mean, it would take forever to actually comb through. And at one time, I thought I had everything completely locked down, and then you install a new piece of software, and it goes and turns something back on for you. You didn't even realize it did it. And then you get into programs like, I know people use Life 360, but Life 360 shares data. I mean, it's been revealed they share data with things. So I don't know. All of it makes me absolutely nervous. We just have to be diligent and watch what's going on and make sure that we understand what our government is using against us. Anyway, let's I tell you what, let's go ahead and fire off the break. Congressman Arrington has arrived at the Southwest Studios, and we come back from the break. We'll visit with him until he gets tired of us, I guess. We'll take the break. 806-680-2790. This is the Chad Hasty Show. Back in a moment.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
I'm a pretty great multitasker. I can wash dishes and do laundry. I can roller skate while walking my dog. I can even order lunch while doing my homework. But I can't use my phone while driving. A distracted driver is one of the leading causes of death in the United States. So when it comes to driving, please, don't be a multitasker.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Hey, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Steve Evans hanging out with you, 806-680-2790. If you'd like to send us a message, 791 says Skynet is near. It's kind of creepy the way it sounds, right? I'll get 762. I got to read that one off the air real quick before. It's too much for me to read without looking at it first. So, Congressman Arrington joins us in the Southwest studio. You've been in the district, out running around, visiting. I'm watching you on Facebook, visiting all your rural areas.
Yes.
Great people. You get a pretty good turnout when you do that, don't you?
Yeah, what did Obama say? The people who cling to their guns and their Bible was a great compliment, by the way. And I'm proud to represent those God-fearing, freedom-loving Americans who live in the food, fuel, and fiber capital of the world. I'm also talking to our ag producers and the challenges that they're having and what we're capable of getting done between now and the end of November, the election, and the lame duck year. So really good feedback, always energized to be home, Steve. And, people get it here. They understand that this is the most important election in modern history, and our country's going to take a pretty definitive course one way or the other as a result of this election. And so in many ways, it's for all the marbles, and we're at a tipping point, and so we've got to preserve this great republic of ours.
So that's where I was. That was what I was. Is that too loud? I can turn those down a little bit. Let me back that off for you. Just jerking his headphones off.
I can't even think. This thing is so loud.
We were visiting before we went on the air, and I didn't think to do a sound check. So that should be better there.
Yeah.
That's where I was going to drag you because, it almost sounds cliche. Every time we get into an important election, we talk about this is the most important election. This really is.
Yeah.
It's almost all the marbles this time another 4 years, and Kamala Harris would be, it's not Biden 2.0. It's a disaster. Yeah. We would not be able to, we'll survive it at some point in some fashion, but I don't know how. So, I really wasn't going to focus on what's going on in D.C. right now because it
will depress you and me and your listeners.
Right. But it's not that important, but what I want to know is what's going on in the district. What are you doing? Because you're campaigning. You're not necessarily campaigning for yourself, but you're out campaigning. What are you doing every day to get out and help the cause?
Well, listen, I'm blessed because I've got great support here. This is a very conservative district, so you win the primary, you're on a pretty certain path to success. I don't want to take anything for granted, but what I do is try to help the entire conference. That's why they elected me chair of the House Budget Committee. We do a lot to raise money for races that we think we have the best opportunity to flip from Democrat to Republican, like Myra Flores in the Rio Grande Valley, for example.
That's what I was going to ask you about.
She was up here recently. I've done a number of events for her. And the generosity of West Texans, for me, also flowed to these opportunities in defense of these competitive seats, but also in order to flip, grow the margin so that, God willing, we get Donald Trump in the White House. He'll have a stronger majority in the House. I think there's greater certainty in the Senate than the House. So we've got to work hard. And the ability to expand that is not as big as some people think. It's probably 20, if you stretch it, it's 20 to 25. But the reality is, I think 10 would be a good night for us, just because of the new landscape politically after all the redistricting throughout the country. But I think it's a pretty stark contrast and clear choice between two very different visions of our country and its future. And as I saw in a preview from the CNN campaign commercial for Kamala Harris, she was asked, why are you flip-flopping? Her response was, my values haven't changed. Well, I'm glad she said that. So now let's believe her.
Well, I think let's her understanding of her values keeps changing. Maybe her values don't change, but she certainly changes her understanding of them.
Well, she can't repackage the last 4 years because too many people are suffering as a result of the crime spree, of the lawlessness at the border, especially here at Ground Zero in Texas. But as budget chair and as someone that spends a lot of time on economic policies, their unbridled spending and their failed economic policies have created this cost of living crisis for people. And it's real. I just got through talking to a group of farmers, producers, and I've talked to a number of them. Their biggest challenge is that safety net is irrelevant when your input costs are exponentially over what they were 3 years ago. The fuel cost, the seed, the fertilizer. But every manufacturer and every business and every household is in that same position. The credit card debt, Steve, is $1.7 trillion. It's the highest it's ever been because 6 out of 10 Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. They don't even have $1,000 in their savings account. And the average APR on that credit card that they're having to use just to feed the family,
25%.
Over 20% on average. And household consumer debt is $18 trillion. It's the highest it's ever been. Consumers have no confidence in the future. If you look at the Consumer Confidence Index, we saw the Bureau of Labor Statistics fudge by almost 1 million jobs. The economy is not good, and 4 more years will be a nosedive into recession. We don't even talk about the debt because I think your listeners understand the debt has never been worse. We're at the highest level of indebtedness surpassing World War II, and we're servicing that debt with $1 trillion, which is more than we spend on our military.
When we talk about personal debt, personal deficit, the brick wall that people are going to hit is going to come much sooner than the country's brick wall.
Yeah,
and I don't
agree.
know where it's at, but when you look at a 40% increase in groceries, I go to the grocery store. I remember when we were growing up, $100 would fill up 2 baskets of groceries, and now $200 might get you a couple bags worth, depending on what you buy. There is a limit, and I think we're almost there. I think we're about to hit it, and then what are we going to do?
They're in dire straits.
That's a question you can't answer.
No, it's not. Well, you got to stop the spending that overstimulated demand. When you spend a $2 trillion in the name of COVID, which had very little to do with COVID. And then on the heels of that, which the audacity of our Democrat colleagues to jam a partisan inflation, quote, Inflation Reduction Act, they just overheated
After
demand.
they printed so much money that we can't recover from it.
The Federal Reserve's buying the debt. They're spending money like there's no tomorrow. And at the same time, they're squeezing supply with more taxes and more regulations, and especially on energy, which is the lifeblood of our economy. It was a Molotov cocktail to just burn through everybody's wallets and their family budgets. And I think that's going to be, at the end of the day, I think that's the acid test, and I think that's the big push for people to pull the lever for President Trump.
As we're about to go to break, I remember in the last couple of years hearing about people borrowing money to go to the county fair or running their credit cards up to go to the county fair. I can't imagine what it's going to be like this year. We'll take the break, check in with news and weather, back with more Chad Hasty Show and Congressman Arrington. Stick around.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790.
Heads up, Texas.
So you don't hit my car when I'm sitting at a stoplight.
Heads up, Texas.
So I can ride my bike safely.
Heads up, Texas.
So I can make it across the street without getting run over.
Heads up, Texas.
So I don't have to write you a ticket.
Heads up, Texas, because driving and using your phone is a bad combination. Talk, text, crash. Brought to you by TxDOT.
My name is Corporal Bradley Joseph Seitz.
Jerry Reed.
Kate Weber.
These are real veterans facing a real challenge.
I have PTSD.
And I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder can happen to anyone.
I was still in a war zone in my mind.
But treatment can turn your life around.
Treatment has really saved my life.
To learn about PTSD and how treatment can help you, call your local VA medical center or visit ptsd.va.gov.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. You're listening to The Chad Hasty Show.
Welcome back to The Chad Hasty Show, 806-680-2790. If you'd like to send a message, Joel from Merkel, Texas says, if Kamala wins, we all run out of gas, food, money. She'll tax our 401ks at 45%, recession and bankruptcy that we can't fix. If we don't hit it before she would be elected. We can't.
My man from Merkel is telling you the truth. And we're already on the precipice of that reality. And it's self-inflicted. And that's why policies have consequences. And when Kamala Harris does her interview tonight and you hear her say again, my values haven't changed, just know that there's a set of policies that advance those values. And they're policies like we've seen at our border, policies like we've seen for the economy, and there are policies that were the road to serfdom that Hugo Chavez and many a nation have gone to perfect, quote unquote, socialism, and it's never worked out.
I'm going to tell you, you look like you've aged, my friend, greatly in the past couple of years.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm looking forward to the day when you can come in here and we can talk about how great everything is.
I know.
And not be doom and gloom. You brought up Maya Flores earlier, and I made a prediction a while back. I told you this at an event, that just my opinion, and you may have more data now, but with the potential for Colin Allred to bring $150 million into the state of Texas fighting Ted Cruz, I estimated that would impact Maya Flores' race, where it normally should be a $300,000 to $400,000 or $500,000 race. It might go well over $3 million. Are those numbers even? I mean, you're looking at it. Are they remotely accurate?
It's millions of dollars. It's millions of dollars, and the NRCC, that pool of money is being leveraged. It's not just local money, Texas money, and so she would be a huge win, because she represents a Biden basically 12 district that she would topple. Think about that. Biden won that district by 12. She cut it in half last time, the last election.
Yeah, she did.
She wasn't able to pull it off. She won the special election before that in a Biden 2 or 3. If she pulls off a Biden 12, number one, we get a bigger margin in the House. Number two, and we're going to definitely keep the House if she's winning. That's a good sign for President Trump as well for that evening. But I think more importantly, as they say in hockey, Steve, you got to skate to where the puck is going to be, not just where it is. And I think the biggest opportunity for the Republican Party and conservatives is to tap the conservative families and individuals who are our fellow Americans who happen to be Hispanic, of Hispanic descent, who love God in their country, patriotic people, the hardest working folks who came to this country or their father or grandfathers for freedom, for opportunity, not for the lawlessness and chaos, not for the socialism that bankrupted their former home. So I just see that. I got to say, you got to fight the fight that's here in front of you, because as you mentioned, rightfully so, we're at an inflection point. And this is the most consequential election of our lifetime for sure. But you have to look ahead. We got to win hearts and minds. And the hearts and minds that are already aligned with the values of West Texas, which happen to reflect the values of the Republican Party, are these hardworking, God-fearing, freedom-loving Hispanic families, 90% of whom live in that concentrated area of the Rio Grande Valley. So, man, I've been there with Myra on the stump. She's amazing. She's inspiring. And she doesn't give the typical political talking points. She talks about faith, family, and freedom. And she does it in a way that inspires trust and confidence.
She's not a politician.
No, she's not.
She's not. She's just an average. Isn't that Border Patrol? And her husband works at the Border Patrol.
Yes.
Amazing story.
Yeah. Imagine having Myra Flores, female Hispanic, married to a Border Patrol agent, telling the story about all the many social and economic adverse impacts on this country and what has to be done to support those guys and to bring some law and order to our southern border.
Well, I'll tell you, if she wins, I'm going to not support the congressional baseball game, but I'm going to support the congressional boxing match, and her and
Vicente
AOC can duke it out. They can be the headliner card.
AOC's got no shot against Myra Flores. Let me tell you, I know both of them, and in fact, you and I don't have a shot against Myra Flores if we get in the ring. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Probably not.
She is one bad mama.
She will throw that mom look at you and just knock you over with that.
You know, she's got such a beautiful smile, but let me tell you something. She plays for keeps. And the blessing is she's playing to keep our country safe, strong, and free. And I'm so thankful she's on our team. And that's the big play for Texas.
So everybody else, the Republican-held seats are fairly secure.
Yeah,
Texas.
Across Texas.
That's the battleground seat right there.
Yeah, you know, Henry Cuellar has gotten into some trouble, and you would think that would be enough to cause him to jeopardize his seat. But, you know, Henry Cuellar has done a couple things. He's been the one Democrat to criticize this administration for 4 years on their border policy, so he's called him out, which some think is why he got the FBI raid on his home. Right? Like,
yeah.
I mean,
well, no, Ken Paxton, it was all done for a good reason.
Yeah, I'm sure it was good faith. But secondly, he's the only pro-life Democrat in the United States House Democratic Caucus, the only one. So I think he enjoys uniquely a pretty broad support. I worked with him on many projects to support rural infrastructure, make sure we get our share of the investment for I-27, for rural hospitals, things that we need to continue to produce the food and energy product that blesses the nation.
Let's see. I tell you what, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and that'll give us a little bit longer segment. I'm going to drag you down a rabbit hole. I've never done this to you before.
Okay.
Drag you down a rabbit. You'll love this.
You've done so many things. I'm prepared.
806-680-2790. Your text and more. We'll come back with Congressman Arrington on the Chad Hasty Show.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at KFYO.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hey, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Steve Evans hanging out with you, Congressman Arrington, sitting across the table. And so I told you I was going to take you down a rabbit hole. It's not too bad. But hear me out on this before you jump in. So yesterday we were talking about Zuckerberg's letter to Chairman Jordan. And he says in that letter that, you know, he was pressured by the Biden administration to suppress COVID-19 articles. He was pressured to do other things. But in the letter said, we made the choice to do it. Republican members of the House are coming out saying that he has denied people their First Amendment right. He has squelched free speech. He is, and I have a problem with that. And let me tell you why. I believe people have a right to do what they want with the things that they own. And it's not a public platform. He owns it. It is private. It is his. You do sign up. You do sign user agreements. It reaches a broad spectrum of people. But and if you don't have enough information, I'm going to give you a parachute out of this. If you need to research this a little bit before I put you on, I'll give you an escape hatch on it. But you know, and I got kind of roasted on the text line. Like, people, wait a minute. But is this a slippery slope? If we go down this, what's next? Are we going to tell someone at a clothing store that they own that they don't have a right to kick someone out because they're saying something that they don't like, which they do now? I think we were at this fine line between protecting our right to do what we want with our things. And so I'm a little bit curious at several Republican congressmen out there screaming there's a First Amendment violation. Now, if the government put so much pressure on them that they squelched it, that is a denial of First Amendment rights. But I can't deny someone's First Amendment rights with my business. Anyway, I'm curious on your thoughts where you're at on that, because I think it's dangerous where the rhetoric that we're hearing.
Well, there is a different application of laws when you operate in the public domain as like a public bulletin board. And there is a regulation, I want to say 232, that's often debated even within the Republican Party. Should we apply the things that we apply to, for example, newspapers, in terms of the standard of what they can and cannot do? I err on freedom. I'm with you. Mm-hmm. I don't think the answer is to regulate them or to have the federal government come down on a private company, but it's the monopoly. It's the fact that they are a monopoly, and we ought to have competition of ideas and forums like that so that there's more choices for us. Because when there's not, and you're driven to one platform essentially, that's a problem. So it's an antitrust issue for me, which is a freedom issue, because there's no freedom when you have big government or big business monopolizing the airwaves, so to speak, in this case. So, yeah, I mean, it's like they did with Ma Bell and just break them up. It's going to be hard to compete with Facebook and Meta and these social media platforms that have grown and have tremendous influence. I mean, Trump's tried to do it with Truth Social, but we need to have more choice as consumers. And when we do, we can decide, like we do with CNN, to turn it off, all that noise and nonsense and propaganda, and turn it on another station, and on it goes. That's the right approach to me, because I'm with you. I get very concerned, and too often Republicans take a play out of the Democrats' playbook, and like we did with the Parents' Bill of Rights, for example, in education. We say, if you take our federal money, you have to do these things. And by the way, they're good things. Like, you got to tell the parents what you're teaching the kids. But that's not an issue for the federal government. That's an issue for the local school board. We ought to not say, here's the money, here are the strings that are attached. We ought to defund the Department of Education and not let any sinister intervention happen from the federal government at the local level and in education. It should be with the state and the local school boards where it belongs. So my position is err on freedom and competition and market freedoms in this case, and there aren't any with these big tech companies.
Is X not big enough to be considered full competition to Meta?
Oh, I think it is more now than it was at the time. Remember, at the time, they were suppressed. They were interfering with the election.
Yeah, pre-Elon Musk Twitter, yeah.
Elon Musk, when they were suppressing the news on Hunter Biden's laptop. Well, they were told it was, as Zuckerberg said, Russian information. Well, that was convenient. They also said that he only had some misdemeanor charges. And because this is one thing I can say as Republicans in the majority, our oversight from Jim Jordan, Jamie Comer, Ways and Means, we have pushed. We stopped a sweetheart plea deal that would have gotten him off of a lot of charges. It would have been a misdemeanor. Many of the statute of limitations expired. Now he's got multiple felony convictions because the judge pulled back, because we brought information that, because we had an impeachment inquiry and we used impeachment investigation tools, which are much bigger and broader than if we did oversight. So Republicans did the right thing there. I mean, now we have a decision to make, because we've now learned, I know I'm skipping around a little bit,
yeah, go ahead.
But that we have, that not just 1 million or 2 or 3 sloshed around in the web of influence peddling sham businesses that were started in the Hunter Biden family influence scheme. It was $27 million that they got from foreign individuals, foreign entities, foreign nation states. Was the president compromised? How much of that money flowed to him? $8 million in, quote, loans from big Democrat donors. And no election law violation, and yet they want to give Alvin Bragg an opportunity to take a federal, what is not a federal law, and what was a misdemeanor, what was a cold case, and make some election law out of it. Obviously, 2 standards, lawfare, weaponization of the justice system, may be the worst, that and freedom of speech, the censorship. Mm-hmm. Those may be the 2 biggest threats, literally. Not January 6th and everything and Donald Trump, according to those are the threats to our republic. Those are the threats to governing our republic. And there's a lot to smoke out. There's a lot to root out. We've done some of that as the Republican majority in the House, but there is a lot more to do. And quite frankly, Steve, we're going to need a strong chief executive who has the political will to do it, and do it from day 1 through the last day in year 4, because there's a lot more there than people even imagined, and than I imagined. So we got to get President Trump in there to, as he said in his first election, drain the swamp. I always liked that. Well, we found out there's a deeper state and a swampier swamp, and he's borne the brunt of it like nobody else. I mean,
I would love for him to come out and say that he's going to dissolve all the alphabets. That would make me so excited.
Or push them out to the hinterlands so that you have a Department of Agriculture, but it's in Lubbock, Texas, not in Washington, D.C. So you're not hiring a bunch of folks that are basically part of the Democrat.
I just want to shrink government. I've called on the county commissioners to withdraw out of TAC and the city to withdraw out of TML and get rid of these taxpayer-funded lobbying groups, these liberal groups that make policy by unelected bureaucrats. It just infuriates. And every day I pull a story up about some alphabet that made policy. Anyway, I know you got to go. That'll wrap up the first hour of the Chad Hasty Show right here on the Texas Town Square Media Network. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Steve. Good to see you. God bless
a blast.
Our great country, and go West Texas.
Go West Texas. Take care. We'll be back.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media. Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty. Filling in today for Chad Hasty, it's cotton industry expert Steve Evans.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Chad Hasty Show. Steve Evans hanging out with you. Thank Congressman Arrington for coming on the show for a little bit. It goes by so fast. Man, sometimes you don't realize how quick it goes by. A lot of text to get to. I'm going to see if I can make sense of them. 466 and a lot. And let's look like a lot this to the morning show, too. So I'm not sure where you're going. I'm going to read them. It says, vote Democrat for electricity in Texas. I don't know what you're talking about there. If Republicans keep winning in Texas, we will be a third world state. Okay. Let's see. I know there's some more, but they are not coming up here. Let me do a handy-dandy refresh and see if they pop up. Got a slew of Texas. Texts. Oh my goodness, I'm getting tongue-tied again. Let's see, we read that one. Yap, nothing happens. Hillary and Biden are innocent. And what about elderly abuse charges on Jill Biden? I mean, it's just kind of all over the place. But anyway, hey, thanks for listening. 773. Couple in from you. I voted for Roberts in the primary, a little worried about what we would get from Mr. Arrington. I was wrong to be concerned and have been pleasantly surprised at how well he has represented us. Want an improvement over his predecessor. Don't let that go to your head. I don't know if he's listening or not. Don't let that go to your head. Keep up the hard conservative work you have been doing. 773 also says, I view social media platforms as being very similar to phone companies. There was a time when we had to tell phone companies that cannot deny service based on what the user said over the phone, but we need to do that with social media regarding political speech by users. Yeah, I've still got, and I appreciate Congressman Arrington's remarks on that. I'm not sure that I agree that it's a monopoly. I think X is big enough now. I think Truth Social is not. I've lost my tail on stock in Truth Social. It's dropping like a rock. I should have sold it a month and a half ago. My goodness. But it seems like there's some other alternatives. But I'm going to look up the law he was talking about and get more educated on it, but I'm still always cautious. Still want to protect the things that we own that are ours and our right to do what we want with them. And of course, we covered, I read Joel out of Merkel, his statement, if Kamala wins, we'll all run out of gasoline, food, and money. She'll tax our 401k at 45%. Recession and bankruptcy that we can't fix. And I agree with you. It's very real. It could happen. Those of you that send me links, I'm probably not going to click those. Don't know where they go. I'm just about caught up here, I think. And, of course, Robert messing with me, telling me the squirrel is strong. Another one from 660. We can't let Democrats win. Mike V. Merkel. Mike V. and Merkel. Merkel blowing us up today. We cannot let the Democrats win. We can't let the Democrats win. We cannot allow, and if you just want to focus, if don't even focus on the presidential race right now. Get that out of your mind for just a second. If you just simply focus on Senator Cruz's race, that's all you really got to do at the moment is focus on his race and do what you can to turn out voters, because they're going to vote and turn out. They'll turn out for Ted Cruz. They'll turn out for Donald Trump, and that's what we can do. Now, if you want to take it a little bit further, I was talking this week about strike forces. There will be strike forces all over the place put together, especially when you look at areas that are going to be solidly Republican. They will go into battleground areas, battleground states. We've had teams go over to Georgia, places like that, and walk blocks and knock on doors and go out and try to make a difference. And that's available. Steve at Sevens Radio. If you're interested in that, email me. I'll put you in touch with someone that can help you with those strike forces if you want to go. A lot of times those campaigns, they'll pay, they don't cover it 100%, but they'll help out with travel expenses. See, there's that John Denver yawn again. You did it, Nick. They'll help out with some travel expenses and fuel sometimes, and sometimes hotel rooms and things like that. They try to help out, but something that you're interested in. But if you focus here in the state on Senator Cruz's race, because that's going to be a bloody, brutal battle. And the problem with it is the money that Colin Allred is bringing in. He's not as exciting a candidate as Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke was a more exciting candidate. But let's see, I got a text here. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think that's for me. Sorry. He's not as exciting a candidate, but the money that's behind him is much, much greater. And that's the problem. Beto O'Rourke spent somewhere around $85 to $88 million. He outspent Ted Cruz 5, 6, 7 to 1. And now we're talking about $150 million, and I suspect Ted Cruz might raise a little bit more than last time, but it's still, the ratio is going to be lopsided. There's PACs that are. I mean, there's been we've had truckloads of campaign signs and stuff that we didn't have last time in Lubbock, Texas, in the surrounding areas. We're pushing them out to all the counties in the listening area. Your Republican Party chair has gotten an allotment, and the PACs are putting them out this time. There is an effort to work for Senator Cruz in the red firewall. And you talk about Wichita Falls, Amarillo, Lubbock, San Angelo, Abilene, the big five areas. That's where the battle's at. And that PAC there's an effort there for that PAC. So there are things you can do, but focus on Senator Cruz's race and working for that, and the votes for Donald Trump will come. I don't suspect we're going to get remotely close to Donald Trump losing Texas, but, you can't ever, that's the thing we get to, and the reason why Senator Cruz, the last time he ran, he only got within they got within 188,000 to 190-something thousand votes, depending on where you look. But they got really close, and that's the reason is because people get complacent. Ask Senator Cruz. He's solid. We're solid Republican state. He's easily going to win. There's no reason for me to go vote. And he was out in West Texas doing rally. Did a rally in Pampa, Texas. I remember a reporter saying, "What are you doing here?" Because every single vote that's cast in a solid conservative area offsets a vote in Galveston. It offsets a vote in Austin. It offsets a vote in Dallas. Ted Cruz lost his home precinct in the Houston area. Lost it. But the red firewall, West Texas, hard R conservative areas turned out and cast a vote and offset it, and that's what brought it home. And that has to happen. Absolutely has to happen. And if we do that and focus on that, we'll deliver a solid victory for Donald Trump in Texas. And that's what we've got to worry about. Other states, like I said, strike forcing and sending money and reaching out to state Republican parties and finding out where the battleground areas are and things like that are other things you can do to help out, to do our part. But again, focusing on Senator Cruz is where it's at. Let's see. Let's go ahead and take the break a little bit early. My phone's blowing up. I need to deal with that real quick. It's distracted me, and we'll grab something else. You're texting more, 806-680-2790. We'll take the break and be right back.
Chewing on a piece of grass, walking down the road.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
August was born 3 pounds, 9.8 ounces. When I first saw him, it was a whole range of emotions. There's stuff I still want to do. Being a young dad, it's not giving up. It's shifting. I looked through his eyes. I can envision a whole future with him already. To throw the first football to him, give him ice cream for the first time. My life is now devoted to his life.
Through all of fatherhood's firsts, never stop being a dad. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hey, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, 806-682-2790. It's a border story. This came out Fox News today. Interesting border story. The Mexican border state of Chihuahua is on alert for members of a violent Venezuelan gang called, I'm going to mess this up, Tren Aragua, or TDA. Thank goodness they've got an acronym for it. After receiving reports that members of the gang were moving through the state to cross into the U.S. near El Paso, Texas. Chihuahua Secretary of Public Safety Gilbert Loya warned Monday that Mexican authorities have seen a large number of individuals they believe are members of TDA operating in the state and passing through to cross the U.S. border with Mexico near El Paso. The report comes after the Treasury Department in July sanctioned TDA as a transnational criminal organization, noting that the gang has committed human trafficking, extortion, money laundering, drug trafficking that pose a deadly criminal threat across the Western Hemisphere. The gang leverages its transnational networks to traffic people, especially migrant women and girls, across borders for sex trafficking and debt bondage. The Treasury Department said in a statement at the time, the gang members often kill them and publicize their death as a threat to others. U.S. officials warned earlier this month that the gang, which originated in Aragua, Venezuela, is infiltrating the U.S., while Republican Tony Gonzalez has described TDA as MS-13 on steroids. They're extremely aggressive. It's not as if they're a passive group or they want to quietly go about things, Gonzalez said in a phone interview earlier this week. earlier this month. They're coming from Venezuela, one of the most war-torn countries of the last decade. They're battle-hardened in many ways. They've made this trek from there to here, but they're also becoming more organized and more brazen. Members of the gang are suspected of being behind a recent video that captured a group of men armed with handguns and rifles bursting through doors of an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado, that residents say has been overrun by gang activity. This is organized. They patrol the property with guns visibly, like they're not trying to hide them. There's no repercussion. These are ghosts. One resident who spoke with Fox News on the condition of anonymity because they're scared of them. The gang is seen has been seen dealing drugs from the apartment building. And another resident told Fox that while Aurora City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky Aurora City Councilman Danielle Jurinsky told Fox News, without a doubt, there is sex trafficking now going on when it comes to TDA's activities in the city. In Mexico, lawyers said the group has been responsible for multiple homicides in central Mexico, and that is his hope the border state can get out in front of the problem. We have detected, thanks to collaboration with the United States, that a large number of people who belong to this gang have passed through Chihuahua, according to a translation by Border Report. Seeing what is going on in central Mexico, we want to be ahead of the curve here in Chihuahua. Neither the White House nor CBP will respond for comment, because they don't have an answer. This stuff just floors me. We have virtually an open border policy. We've handcuffed the Border Patrol. We've handcuffed CBP. We've handcuffed ICE. The enforcement mechanisms are gone. Texas is forced to take initiative on the border. And the thing that gets me is how many slip through the cracks. I mean, there's no way we're repelling 100%. How many slip through the cracks? And how many and we're seeing the highlights of this Venezuelan gang, but how many dangerous gang elements have already crossed over, are already operate in the United States, are already bringing fentanyl and meth and marijuana laced with one or the other, marijuana laced with fentanyl. How many are bringing that stuff into the United States? I've got friends that have lost loved ones to fentanyl overdoses that just are too close. And so we just sometimes it's overwhelming. We have these compounding problems. I sit with Congressman Arrington and we talk about the financial crisis that's ahead of us. And it seems like every issue you bring up, there is a crisis. There's a crisis on the border. There's a financial crisis right here at home. People are in debt up to their eyeballs. The cost of goods and services have gone through the roof. The cost of electricity going through the roof. Trying to get a home mortgage, it's hardly affordable. The cost of vehicles, the cost of fuel. Where does it end? And yet we're still have America divided on who they want to be for the president, which party they want to stand behind. I don't know. I'm flabbergasted sometimes to think that people want dangerous gangs and drugs. They want all this to come into the country. You sit and visit with a Democrat that is, and I'm talking, and I'm not sure there's any moderate Democrats anymore, There might be some out there, but most of them that I know are just going to take the hardline Democrat talking points. And I throw this question. So you're okay with this coming into the country? They're in denial. Oh, it's not as bad as Fox News makes it. It's not as bad as Governor Abbott makes it out to be. They're misreporting the numbers. It's absolute denial that there's a problem. But the last time I checked is even the Democrats, they're sitting in the same economy we are, aren't they? Do they have like some special Democrat card that gets them cheaper groceries and cheaper medicine and cheaper fuel and cheaper cost of goods and services and cheaper electricity? Do they have some special avenue that I don't have? Something I don't know about? Because if they're sitting in the same economy and sitting in the same situation that you and I are, why are they not screaming and hollering saying, what is a solution? A more radical candidate for president, more radical than Joe Biden, more radical than Barack Obama. That's a good idea. That's who they're going to get behind and say, this is the answer. Did they not feel the effects of a 4-year Donald Trump presidency? Did they not see the positive effects that happened? Did they not see fuel prices going down? Did they not see the cost of goods and services for your home going down? Did they not see support for the farmer? Did they not see all that? Because I did, clear as a bell, in all of the numerous things that the Trump presidency did that never even made the news. I spent a lot of airtime back when I would fill in on the morning show on KFYO and this time slot, just going over the tremendous amount of accomplishments that Donald Trump had just in the first 2 years, rolling back red tape and regulations, taking those restrictions off the small business, stimulating the economy. There was a policy I'd heard about at one time for every regulation that you were going to write, Donald Trump wanted you to get rid of 2. There was a concentrated effort to roll back red tape and regulations. And when you do that and you shrink government and you let people go make money and keep it, and you let people exist and you let people thrive, we have a better economy and a better society and a stronger America. And I just cannot understand why you've got Democrats that are sitting in the same Lubbock, Texas, Amarillo, Texas, the same environment and same economy that you and I are in, and they cannot see that. I just don't understand. I wish somebody could explain it to me. People must be blind, because where I'm coming from is people ought to be flocking to the Republican Party. People ought to be lining up in droves to vote for Donald Trump. I can't see how they want 4 more years of despair, 4 more years of destruction, 4 more years of erosion of our economy, erosion of our personal wealth, erosion of everything we have as they drive us right towards socialism. I don't get it. Love for someone to explain it to me. 806-680-2790. Hey, we're going to take a break. Back with more show in a minute.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. Today's markets from the Texas Department of Ag.
Well, howdy, neighbors. Texas feeder cattle hogs were mixed. Prices steady to $8 lower. Cattle futures mixed. August live cattle futures up $1.12. Close at $184.87. August feeder cattle futures down 38 cents. They close at $243.17. October cotton futures up, closing at $70.13. September wheat futures were steady at $5.45 a bushel. September corn up 7 pennies to close at $3.72. And September soybean futures up 15 cents. Close at $9.74 a bushel. September soybean meal futures were down $2.20. Closed at $308.60 per ton. August class 3 milk futures up a couple of pennies, closing at $20.63 a hundred. October crude oil futures up $1.42, trading at $75.94 per barrel, and the Dow Jones up 243 points, closed at 41,335. And that's market roundup from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I'm your commissioner, Sid Miller, and remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters. Sold.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Chad Hasty, talking the news. At the start middle, and end of your drive home, and when news breaks. This is The Chad Hasty Show.
Welcome back to The Chad Hasty Show. Steve Evans hanging out with you, 806-680-2790. That magic text line, get you right to me. Quite a few to catch up on. 786 says, I'm glad you read text like the person who said we'll have a third world country. It's just so funny. It's all kind of goes together. So this is 466 you're talking about. At 466, I was not directing that last tirade at you necessarily. Just the way it worked out. That person who said we'll have a third world country if Trump gets elected. He probably couldn't tell us what a third world country is and thinks socialism is being sociable. I guess he thinks Trump's first 2 years was a third world as he sees it. Well, so funny that 466 texted in right behind you, like almost like he knew you had just texted in and said, I'm being sarcastic. And sends a... I usually don't do attach. Oh, I can't read that on the air, 466. Don't do that. Don't send me stuff like that. Mess up and accidentally read it on the air. 341 says, David and Amarillo, I've been looking for years for why people on the left support the crazy and often self-contradictory things they do. It's the nicest thing I can come up with is most of them are just sneeches. I don't know what that means. I haven't heard that word before. Sneeches? I don't know. They're seeking approval without caring about the actual effects. Maybe that's a word. We'll look it up. But the actual effects of the stuff they support. I don't know. I don't know, David. Let's see. Eric piped in. We both know Democrats love chaos. It's a way to manipulate the people. Imagine the high they must enjoy when they look out at their protected compound, flip on the TV or radio and watch what they created. What kind of sick and twisted being does this? I don't think it's not, Democrats don't own the patent on that. I don't think that's exclusive, but we're not talking about, like, people that I'm talking about are not the people that love chaos. I mean, I know a lot of Democrats and I talk to them. I mean, because I'll talk to anybody, because I still have this hope that once in a while I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to flip a voter to the Republican Party, or I'm going to preach the gospel to somebody who's not a believer. And actually, not in that order. Gospel first, Republican Party second. I'll talk to anybody. I'll read your text. I've had a token troll Democrat that used to troll our Sunday show and tell us how awful we are, and how can we were talking heavily about abortion and abortion ordinance in the city of Lubbock at the time, and how could a bunch of middle-aged white guys talk about abortion? And it was, but I read every text. You have to take the good with the bad. You have to identify the people that disagree with you, because if I'm just preaching to the choir here, that's no fun. I'm hoping that, and I think Chad feels this way too. I'm not going to speak for him, but we're hoping that at least the show reaches someone who might disagree, might actually have an understanding once in a while. I mean, we've got Democrats that have called in and screaming liberals that have called and text in. And I mean, it's funny that there are some that listen to this show and they text in thinking that they're somehow going to change me by insulting me. It's easy to be a keyboard warrior and hide behind it, but that's fine. I enjoy the feedback. It's the text line when we started it several years ago was kind of bittersweet, because I thought that it kind of took away the phone calls. We used to be a heavily call-in show, and then we started doing the text, and I think people kind of got lazy with it and phoned it in. But how are you going to get this much wisdom out of Eric, the Brains of Health Center, if you had to talk to him? Because he would be calling in every 5 minutes. You just can't do that. So you got to let him text, and so it does work out. It does have its benefits, but that's been my goal. And so, but back on the typical Democrat is, the people that I know that vote Democrat are not hardcore, crazy, socialist, communist left. They're not Marxist. They're just Democrat voters. And sometimes when you talk to them, they're not even really sure. They're not spewing the Democrat line. Some of them are. Some of them are just spewing the Democrat talking points because that's what they know. They can't really counter your argument. And, we've come across a lot of people back when I was the county party chair here, and we would do parades at the 4th of July. We'd go down to the park and set up a booth and do surveys and talk to people. And I would have people come by all the time that would fill out the survey. And they said, well, I'm a Democrat. Okay, we'll fill it out anyway. Let's see where you are. And you get the questionnaire back, the survey back, and you would read it, and you'd look at them and go, listen, you're conservative because you believe in all the same values that I do. So why are you voting Democrat? And a lot of times it's because that's the way Grandma did, or that's the way my pastor at church wants me to, or that's the way our family has always been Democrat. And Democrats today are not the Democrats of yesterday. JFK would probably be a Republican now. He's a very conservative Democrat. It's not the same Democrat Party. It has become a radicalized Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez style radical party that has very little moderates left. And I think it's leaving some people behind. And my hope is that eventually people start to wake up and go, wow, my party's left me. Maybe I'll go see what the Republicans are doing. They got a pretty good idea. But I don't know. That's not necessarily the norm. And the radical Democrat is not necessarily the norm. And it's West Texas. People are different here. But I just cannot get my head wrapped around how a voter can look at everything that's going on, everything around them, and not see things crumbling to the ground, not seeing the brick wall that I was talking to Congressman Arrington at that a lot of people are going to hit when you talk about the personal debt, the amazingly insane interest rates that people are paying for things. And, I looked the other day, I get credit card offers all the time. I'm flipping through them, and some of them are like, yeah, we get great interest, 29%. That's not good. That's horrible. Why would I want a card that I have to pay 29% interest on? That's you'll never pay that off. And those companies are preying on people's misfortune right now. They're down and out, so we'll give you some more credit, get you some more money. And 5 minutes later, that card's maxed out too. And more money. And it's hard for people to understand that they cannot enjoy the same things that they did 2 or 3 years ago with the same amount of money that they make. It's just not possible anymore. And that brick wall's coming. We're overextended. We're paying out the wazoo for things that just basic necessities. And it's all going to come crashing down, and I'm not sure it's going to wait till November. That's the problem, and that's the thing that scares me. I just don't know, and I don't know that there's anybody that can fix it. I'm afraid it's too late. And even electing a solid Republican D.C., grabbing all three branches, I'm not sure will fix it. They had an opportunity to repeal and replace Obamacare. They had an opportunity to do a lot of things that they campaigned on, and they got up there and controlled all three branches for 2 years and did nothing. We didn't get anything solid done. There was no legislation that was put in place that shored up a catastrophe, that prevented things down the road and created ways to keep the Democrats from undoing it. There's tons of ways to do it. There's tons of things that they could have tackled, and they could have really impacted the economy. They could have really impacted America. They could have really made some fantastic policy in those 2 years, and we didn't get much out of it. But the Trump presidency did do some great things in the first 2 years, and I had some list. It was 3 or 4 pages long of just list of things that the Trump presidency had accomplished that never make the news. You're never going to hear about them. Eric says, right before we go to break, Steve, we keep the Democrats behind the red wall here like Area 51 keeps aliens for experimentation and observation. They are immobilized here, but put them in mass, and it's Katie bar the door. They're not immobilized here. They are working. There is, and here's where they're working at, Eric. They're working on school boards. They're working in city government. That's where they're doing the work at, because they and that's the thing that Republicans, I scream and holler about it. We're not paying attention to what's going on in these school board seats. We don't have enough conservatives running for them. A lot of times they're largely controlled by Democrats, and they're indoctrinating our children. They are working inside of Area 51 behind the lines. They are. Very much so. We'll take the break, be back to wrap up the show when we come back.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at KFYO.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
I'll trust water bottles and a flashlight to save the day, but I'll be proved wrong.
With a tornado approaching, I'll realize that I lack a wheelchair-accessible shelter.
When the floodwaters rise, I'll be up in the attic with 20 cans of beans. It's a recipe for disaster.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show as we close out the show, close out the day. 806-680-2790. You want to get that last minute text in. Eric says, you just confirmed my point, bingo. They can't help themselves when they get power. Well, they're slowly turning small areas purple. That's what they're doing, a little bit at a time. Every time we see an election roll around, we have a few little precincts there that start to turn a little bit purple. It's a very slow, like a cancer that spreads. 631 says, you're absolutely right about the first couple of years of the presidency. There were just enough Republicans that fell for the Russian conspiracy to keep them from passing much needed legislation, Danny from Burke Burnett. 535 says the reason Republicans couldn't do anything when they had control was because of the few anti-Trump rhinos who got in the way of everything. You are not wrong. You are not wrong. There was just that die-hard, never-Trump movement that was just not going to allow him to get anything done. And it continued. I mean, and then he got through his first 2 years, and then, we saw what happened after that. And then ultimately an impeachment. It shocked me. This is, I don't know. It gets frustrating sometimes. Frustrating to think how it's like we almost got there, almost. We came so close. And we just couldn't get over the finish line. We've got another chance to do it. We've got a chance to elect Donald Trump for the third time. And see if we can really make some positive change. But I tell you, he's got to come out of the gates, guns a-blazing, ready to take on. I mean, he's got to fix the economy and fix the border. Are there any other issues that are more important than that to you? We got to take care of the economy, and we got to take care of the border. Everything else will fall in line, right? That's the two most pressing issues I see. Fix the southern border, get the economy back on track, where people can thrive. People can exist, they can live, they can afford to live. I don't know if we'll ever be able to roll it back. I don't know if our money will ever be worth anything again. I don't know if we're going to fix the tremendous debt that people are in, if they're going to actually, cost of goods and services are going to get cheaper. I don't know, is that possible? Usually once things go up, they don't ever come back down. It becomes the new normal, a term I hate. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm willing to try. Anything is better than what is in store for us if Kamala Harris takes the presidency. I just can't fathom. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how we can continue. And listen, I'm not one of those that just screaming and hollering about a civil war and about a revolution, because I'm not sure that that's a good idea. If you're on the prevailing side, what do you wind up with? Do you reboot the Constitution? Who winds up being in power? What do you have? Do you still have a republic? I don't know. 773 says we got rid of a lot of those rhinos. Not all, but a lot. Trump can get a lot of good things done if he wins this. Hopefully Vance will turn out better than that loser Pence. Losing to Biden may have been a blessing. Pence wasn't good. I agree. Pence was kind of a letdown. I can tell you who a bigger letdown is, and that's George W. Bush and a lot of his folks. A lot of his old White House and his staffers and those guys surrounded that have endorsed Harris. They just can't stand. There's still just so many people out there that just can't stand Trump, refuse to admit the positive things. They just can't stand him. Or that phrase, I'd like him a lot better if he'd get off of Twitter. Well, who cares? The man was 3 or 4 chess moves ahead all the time. That's what they hate about him. He's 3 or 4 moves ahead. And you don't even know where he's going. He's already got it figured out before anybody else does. Sometimes he's not a great orator. He doesn't always come across, but he didn't get to the position he is in life by being stupid. By no means. A calculated risk taker and a chess player. I don't know if he plays chess, but man, sure feels like he does. 923, just about out of time. Great show, brother. Thanks for the current conversation. I don't see us ever being able to get our country back. If Trump loses, we have Kamala Harris. If Trump wins, we'll have riots in the streets. We might for a minute. We'll have those people screaming, no! Those were so funny. Those are so funny. Made me laugh. People saying, you better fix this. All the way from Burke Burnett. I don't know. I'll take the riots. I mean, that eventually will calm down. I don't know, but I'm scared to death of an unbridled Kamala Harris. You know, if that is even a remote possibility, we've got to hold the House and or take the Senate back. One of those two things has got to happen. We cannot let an unfettered D.C. destroy this country, and that's just, I really feel it's that critical. We're really on the cusp of it. I don't know a better way to convey it, but anyway, stay diligent, my friends. Keep your head up. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I hope. Enjoy being with you today. Always do. Back in the saddle tomorrow. Round out your week, and then we'll close out my time on the air with you on Tuesday. Chad back in studio on Wednesday. Awesome show again, Steve. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening. This is the Chad Hasty Show on the Texas Town Square Media Network. You guys have a great evening. See you tomorrow.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.